The folder was navy blue leather, sitting in the middle of the table exactly 1 hour before she was supposed to walk down the aisle. Her fiancé slid it toward her and said, "Babe, my attorney just needs one signature before the ceremony." By the end of that day, one of them would learn they had been living inside a lie for 3 years. The other one didn't even know it yet. Somewhere downstairs, guests were laughing, glasses were clinking, and a string quartet was tuning their instruments for a wedding that everyone assumed they understood completely. Nobody in that building knew what was actually about to happen. But this story doesn't start in that room. It starts 3 years earlier, with a cup of spilled coffee. Before we dive deeper, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss any of our upcoming videos. Her name was Camille Ashford. His name was Grant Whitaker. On paper, they looked like any other couple about to get married in a restored ballroom in Savannah, Georgia. He was a real estate developer worth $7 million, proud of every cent he had built from nothing. She was, as far as anyone in that room knew, a marketing consultant with a modest home and a 4-year-old car. But that morning, 1 hour before their wedding, Grant asked her to sign a legal document designed to protect his fortune from her. What he did not know, what nobody standing outside that door singing and laughing knew, was that Camille was worth more than 50 times what he had. Why did she let him believe otherwise for 3 full years? And what was Grant actually protecting himself from? The answer would not surface until it was far too late for him to take it back. 3 years earlier, Grant Whitaker walked into a crowded cafe in downtown Atlanta while juggling 2 phone calls and a laptop bag. He collided with a woman waiting in line, and an entire cup of coffee exploded across the front of her white blazer. He apologized immediately, mortified, offering to pay for the dry cleaning on the spot. She laughed it off, telling him it would survive. He insisted anyway. That small argument over a ruined jacket turned into 20 minutes of conversation while they waited for it to be cleaned. He told her about the real estate company he had built from nothing after college. She listened, impressed by his drive, unaware that she had grown up watching men build far larger things in complete silence. When he asked for her number, she almost said no, not because she wasn't interested, but because she had learned that ambitious men often came with invisible competitions attached. His name was Grant, but almost everyone who has ever seen this kind of relationship unfold recognizes the type immediately: confident, hardworking, and quietly convinced that the size of his bank account was the most impressive thing about him. Camille kept her own life deliberately unremarkable. She drove an aging Lexus. She lived in a modest 4-bedroom home. She refused designer gifts unless they came from the older women in her family. What Grant never asked, and therefore never learned, was why a woman this composed, this calm under pressure, this comfortable in rooms full of wealthy men, seemed to need so little from any of them. He assumed her comfort came from smart budgeting and a steady consulting career. He never once considered that comfort might be inherited, protected, and multiplied across 4 generations of a family that had never once needed to announce what it owned. Camille's family history stretched back to the 1940s, when her great-grandfather, a black farmer named Josiah Ashford, began quietly buying land across rural Georgia while banks refused fair loans to families who looked like his. Everyone told him he was wasting his money. He kept buying anyway. Over decades, that land turned into timber, then real estate, then logistics, then private holdings worth hundreds of millions of dollars, all of it managed without headlines, without magazine features, without a single reality television camera ever stepping inside their homes. Camille inherited a seat on that family's investment committee in her early 30s. Grant knew none of this. He knew her favorite songs, her coffee order, and the fact that she called her grandmother every single Sunday afternoon. He never once suspected that the quiet woman across the dinner table was steering acquisitions worth more money than his entire company had ever touched. Camille intended to tell Grant everything, eventually. After the engagement felt too soon. After they bought a home felt too complicated. After the wedding invitations were mailed, felt like the safest excuse of all. But small comments kept giving her reasons to wait longer. At a dinner with his business partners, one man joked that his ex-wife believed emotional support was worth half of everything he owned, and the entire table laughed along, including Grant. Later that same year, watching a celebrity divorce play out on television, Grant said plainly that people who built their fortunes before marriage should always protect themselves legally. Camille said nothing in response. She simply listened, filing every sentence away carefully, the way her grandmother had taught her that people reveal exactly who they are, long before they ever announce it out loud. The proposal came beside a quiet lake outside Atlanta. No cameras, no crowd. Just Grant on one knee, promising Camille honesty, loyalty, and complete partnership for the rest of their lives. She said yes, and meant every word of it. Wedding planning revealed new sides of Grant's family. His mother insisted every guest be someone worth impressing. His father cared only about the luxury of the cars in the parking lot. Camille's grandmother, by contrast, asked for exactly two things: a guest list full of people who genuinely loved her granddaughter, and a homemade peach cobbler. 3 weeks before the wedding, Camille finally scheduled a private dinner to tell Grant the entire truth. Documents prepared, numbers ready, 3 years of silence finally about to end. Halfway through that dinner, his phone rang. His attorney needed him immediately. He apologized, promised they would finish the conversation tomorrow, and left the table. Tomorrow never came. Business trips interrupted it. Venue walkthroughs interrupted it. A family medical emergency interrupted it. Life has an extraordinary talent for postponing the conversations people are most afraid to finish. The morning of the wedding arrived warm and cloudless over Savannah. String quartets tuning, caterers preparing shrimp and grits, exactly the way Camille's grandmother had insisted upon. Inside the bridal suite, her grandmother, a composed woman named Odessa, who rarely raised her voice for anything, took both of Camille's hands and asked the one question she reserved only for the most serious moments of her granddaughter's life. "What's wrong, Camille?" Camille admitted for the first time out loud that the truth still had not been spoken after 3 entire years. Odessa squeezed her hands and told her something she would never forget. Truth never gets easier with age. Minutes later, there was a knock at the door. Grant asked to see Camille alone, which everyone in the room immediately called bad luck. Odessa only smiled and said that sometimes luck isn't the thing anyone should be worrying about. Grant walked in wearing his tuxedo, calm, confident, completely unaware that the woman standing across from him had just decided, after 3 years of waiting, that she was done. Behind him walked his attorney, carrying a thick navy blue folder. Camille read through it carefully. The first several pages were unremarkable, standard language protecting whatever Grant owned before the marriage. Then she reached page 14. A single clause stated that if the marriage ended because of infidelity, only Grant's infidelity would count against him financially. If she strayed, she would forfeit nearly everything. If he did, there would be no meaningful consequence at all. She looked up and asked him directly whether he had personally approved that clause. His hesitation answered the question before his mouth ever did. Camille signed the agreement anyway, not out of surrender, but because she wanted to remember the exact moment something between them changed permanently. 12 minutes later, the ceremony began. 200 guests stood as she walked down the aisle. Grant's eyes filled with tears while he spoke his vows, promising honesty, loyalty, and partnership. Hers filled too, because love does not disappear the instant it becomes disappointed. It lingers, it argues quietly with logic, insisting there must be a reasonable explanation. The reception that followed felt, for a few hours, completely normal. Soul food beside gourmet plates, a live jazz band, laughter carrying long into the evening. Their honeymoon in the Caribbean felt equally peaceful. 10 days of ocean views and quiet conversations about the future. Camille almost told him the truth twice during that trip. Both times, Grant changed the subject before she found the courage to finish the sentence. For the first 6 months of marriage, everything looked stable from the outside. Grant expanded his real estate portfolio aggressively. Camille continued what everyone believed was ordinary consulting work. In reality, monthly trips to New York for family investment meetings overseeing acquisitions worth hundreds of millions of dollars. Grant never questioned her schedule. He admired what he called her independence, never suspecting how literally true that independence actually was. Then interest rates climbed unexpectedly. Construction costs rose across his industry. One of his largest developments outside Charlotte lost its anchor tenant before construction had even finished. For the first time since Camille had known him, Grant stopped talking about growth and started talking about survival, staying awake until 3 in the morning surrounded by spreadsheets, growing distant, short-tempered, and increasingly desperate. One evening, he asked Camille directly whether she could loan him $500,000 if his situation became worse. Camille told him honestly that she didn't have that kind of money sitting around, which was true in the way Grant understood the sentence. That same week, she finally decided enough was enough and asked her uncle to prepare every family document she would need to tell Grant the complete truth that coming weekend. But on a quiet Wednesday afternoon, she returned home early to retrieve a forgotten laptop and heard voices coming from Grant's home office. His business partner Marcus Bell was there. She froze in the hallway the instant she heard her own name mentioned. Grant was laughing, explaining that he had specifically insisted his attorney include that infidelity clause, because he had been secretly seeing another woman named Whitney for nearly 8 months. And once his financial troubles stabilized, he intended to file for divorce and walk away with everything intact, protected entirely by the very document Camille had signed 1 hour before their wedding. Camille did not cry standing in that hallway. Shock has a strange way of protecting a person before grief has time to arrive. She stepped outside quietly, sat in her car for nearly 2 hours, and then drove directly to her family's headquarters instead of returning home. She told her uncle everything, and within 48 hours, her attorney had confirmed all of it. Photographs of Grant and Whitney together in 3 different cities, phone records spanning months, and something even worse. Nearly $2 million belonging to his own company's investors had been quietly diverted to fund Whitney's apartment, her jewelry, and their travel. Money he had stolen from his own business, while simultaneously asking his wife for a personal loan. Camille chose not to confront him with anger. Her family had taught her that when emotions run loudest, it is best to let facts speak first, calmly and completely. That Saturday, Camille told Grant they were driving to her grandmother's for brunch, then quietly redirected the car toward her family's headquarters downtown instead. Grant assumed it was simply one of her small consulting clients, until the receptionist greeted Camille as chairwoman, and an entire boardroom of executives stood the moment she walked through the door. Camille slid a single document across the table showing her family's holdings. $358 million in direct equity, part of a portfolio managing considerably more. Grant read the number twice, convinced he had mistaken million for billion. When the truth finally settled, his hands began shaking visibly. Camille then placed a second, thinner folder in front of him, containing photographs of Whitney, hotel receipts, and flight records. She told him plainly that the prenup had never been about protecting $7 million. It had been designed from the beginning to protect his affair. Grant sat in silence for what felt like several minutes before finally admitting the affair had started during his most stressful project, when talking to Whitney simply felt easier than talking honestly to his own wife. Camille's uncle asked him one direct question in front of the entire board. If he had known Camille's actual net worth before proposing, would he have insisted on the exact same prenup? Grant opened his mouth, closed it again, and never answered, because both possible answers exposed something about him he could not undo. Camille told him she had already filed for divorce that same morning. His company's board discovered the missing investor funds within days. He lost his position as chief executive within a month, not because his business had failed, but because his character finally had, in front of the very people who once believed in both. Whitney disappeared from Grant's life almost immediately once the scandal became public, apparently uninterested in a man who could no longer offer both money and a clean reputation. In their final meeting inside a quiet attorney's office, Grant asked Camille when she had originally planned to tell him the truth. She told him honestly, the night before their wedding, documents already prepared and sitting inside her bag. He laughed quietly at that, not out of humor, but out of the exhausted disbelief of a man realizing exactly how close he had come to having everything, and how completely he had destroyed it instead, over a prenup meant to hide an affair from a woman worth 50 times more than the fortune he had spent his whole life trying to protect from her. A year later, Camille sat on her grandmother's porch drinking sweet tea, while children played nearby in the fading evening light. Her grandmother asked whether she regretted waiting so long to tell Grant the truth. Camille admitted she regretted the waiting itself, but never the truth. Her grandmother looked out toward the sunset and told her to be grateful it had only cost her a marriage and not her own self-respect. Looking back, the folder on that table was never really about $7 million at all. It was about 2 people who spent 3 years standing beside each other without ever truly knowing who the other person was, no matter how many years they had spent quietly pretending otherwise. So we want to ask you directly, would you have signed that prenup knowing what Camille knew? Or would you have asked the one question Grant never bothered to ask? What does my partner actually need protecting from? Let us know your honest answer in the comments below. We read every single one of them. And if this story affected you, wait until you hear what happened when Grant's own mother learned the entire truth outside a courthouse months later, a conversation that changed the entire family forever. Make sure you're subscribed and have notifications turned on, so you never miss the next true story exactly like this one.